Hey everyone, it's Jennifer for SimonsSaysStamp.com. In this video I'm using some of the newest Hero Arts products. They're not available to just everybody yet, only certain few stores have them, and Simons Says Stamp is one of them. So I thought I'd show you some fun things you can do with them. I'll be showing you a few techniques, including the fun kind of optical illusion pattern that you see on the bottom of these cards, and also how I did the stamping on the butterfly here. Also show you at the end what I did with the leftover pieces of some of these backgrounds I made, for example these cards here. So let's go ahead and start with these backgrounds. I created 5 different ones by doing a variety of color combinations, but I used the same stamp on all of them. It's this Hero Arts Tiny Flags background. This is a great background stamp, and it's one that you can do lots of things with, including the technique I'm going to show you today where I'm going to double stamp it. Now I'm picking 2 colors that are close together on the rainbow because this technique works better if the inks are close together. So this is Mint Julep, and I'll also do a green ink. Now for the first color, I'm going to stamp onto the white cardstock by lining the cardstock up on the bottom right corner of the stamp. So if you look down here, you can see that the paper is lined up with the bottom right corner of the stamp, and I'll just press my fingers around to make sure that I transfer the ink onto the white paper completely. Now this is a shadow ink, which starts out kind of splotchy and uneven, but it'll dry nice and smooth, so we'll give it a little bit of time. Now I'm going to go ahead with my second color, which is close on the rainbow to the first. This is Green Hills Shadow Ink, and if you watch this time, I'm going to take the same stamped piece of paper, but I'm going to offset it slightly when I stamp on it. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to lay it down, and you'll see that I'm not stamping all the way to the right of the stamp, but offset maybe about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to press this down again. So I've lined up the bottom still, but I've left the side offset a little bit so that my background will just be a little bit off and you get this great overlapped pattern. And I'll just trim off that extra on the side. This is a great way to get more out of your stamps. Now I wanted to show you a few other color combinations I did. This one I'm starting with Fresh Peach, and then I'll move on to Pale Tomato. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up the background, and then I'll stamp it all the way to the right bottom corner. Now I'm using Hero Arts Shadow Inks here. The reason I'm using that is I like the color combinations, and also when you stamp the two on top of each other you get a nice blended look as this ink kind of absorbs into the paper and smooths out. However, you can use any inks that you want for this technique and it'll just give different looks. So now I'm inking up with the Pale Tomato ink color. This is like a light red. Now this time I'm going to do it a little bit different. Instead of off to the side, I'm shifting it up a little bit. So you can see like the bottom part of my stamp isn't getting stamped. Just shifting it up a little bit, and you'll see you get a completely different look this time. Again, this will soften and smooth out as it dries. Just another way you can get more out of the background stamps. Now I wanted to also show you a few other color combinations. This time I'm doing 2 shades of blue, one light and one dark. This is Soft Sky, a Hero Arts Shadow Ink. I'm just going to stamp that into the bottom right corner. And then I will stamp it again with the Cornflower Blue ink. This time I'm going to do something different once again. I'm going to shift it up and over a little bit. So you see a little gap there on the bottom and the right side. Just another way to get a different look. You can do this with striped backgrounds. You can do this with dotted backgrounds. It's just a great way to get more out of your stamp. My next color combination, I first stamped the background with Butter Bar Yellow ink. And the second time here I'm using the Fresh Peach once again, just stamping it shifted up a little bit. Now I found this works better if it's a repetitive background and a smaller pattern, but you can try it with any stamp that you may have. You could even stamp 3 different times, once shifting to the right and once shifting up or just changing it slightly. For this last color combination I first stamped with Soft Blossom, and now I'm stamping with the Dark Raspberry Jam. This will give a nice tone-on-tone look, and this time I decided to take the stamped image and I'm stamping it flipped. So I just flipped my paper 180 and I'm stamping it upside down on here. So the triangles are going to point in different directions, but you can see you get a fun different look that way too. So now that I've got all my backgrounds done, I wanted to show you how I put this into this card here. So I have all my backgrounds. You can see they've all softened and blended nicely and nice and even. I want to do a diagonal cut here. So I'm going to cut 2 at once. I'm making 5 cards at a time here, and I'll end up with 5 leftover pieces for 5 more cards. So I'm just putting this in my trimmer. I've got the wire guide. This Fisker trimmer has a wire guide that shows me where I'm cutting. And I'm just going to cut off the bottom part. Now I want them all to be cut about the same so they look uniform. So I'm just lining this up on the bottom here and cutting 2 more at about the same place. And then I'll do it with the last piece too. Creating a bunch of backgrounds like this at one time is a great way to mass produce a lot of cards. So now it's time to do this fun butterfly here. I'm using a new Hero Arts product that has stamps and dies that match. So I'm going to use the butterfly. I'm going to take this guy off. Now normally with their stamps, one of the things I like about the Hero Arts dies that's very unique is that the cutting edge is on the inside edge of the die, so there's no guessing. You can see the cutting edge right on the inside edge of the die. So you can first stamp your image and then just put your die on top of it. Here's an example. I just stamped this real quickly to show you, and I'll know exactly where that's going to cut. So it's easy to stamp first, then die cut. But for today's technique, I'm going to die cut first so I can get good placement and then stamp. So I'm just taking my piece that I've cut here. I'm holding it onto a note card just so I can get the positioning right. I'm going to put my butterfly die right on top. And then I'm going to use just a piece of sticky tape. This is Scotch sticky tape, but you could use washi tape or any other kind of temporary tape. And just hold it in place onto this piece, and then I'm going to run it through my die cut machine. These dies work on any die cut machine, and there we have the bottom of the butterfly cut out, and we have a nice little nook for our little butterfly to be stamped in. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this for the other pieces too, but I want to move this process along, so I'm going to take 2 of them. I'm going to kind of stick them together by folding some tape on the bottom and the side, and then I will place my butterfly in the right place once again and hold it there with a little bit of tape, and then put this through my die cut machine, cutting the 2 pieces at once. It's just a good way to save some time. And then I'll move it on and do it with the other pieces too. So now I want to go ahead and do this stamping. So I'm going to take my piece here and I'm going to temporarily adhere it to the bottom of a note card. Later I'm going to adhere it with foam dots, so this is just a little touch of temporary adhesive to hold it in place. So now it's time to do my stamping. I'm going to grab this new stamp set from Hero Arts. Normally Hero Arts stamps come with the printing on it, the black printing, so you can see the stamps better, but this is an early prototype that I got from them, so that's why it doesn't have the printing. But if you buy it, it'll have it. So I'm going to ink up the stamp with 2 inks. I want to get like a 2-tone ink here, inked butterfly, to match the inking that we did. So I'm using Mint Julep, and I'm going to first stamp that into the little nook that we created. Now I want to add some green kind of to the center of the wings, so I'm taking the Green Hills ink that I used for the background also, covering the stamp. Then I'm going with a paper towel, you can use a cloth, and just dabbing away some of the ink from the outside edge of the butterfly. Now the nice thing about clear stamps is you can see through and line this up and stamp it exactly on top of where you stamped before. It's really quite easy to do, to line those little dots in the butterfly up and stamp it down, and now you see I have the green on the inside of the butterfly and just the mint on the outside. So my 2-tone butterfly perfectly matches the background. So I'm going to do that with all of this stamping, all the cards that I did, and then I'm going to stamp this outline on top. And this is a great way to get the look. It looks like you kind of colored in that butterfly with a dotted pattern, which is kind of hard to do any other way. It would be awful to do with markers. So I like that these stamps kind of fit inside of each other. And I also did that 2-tone inking, which really adds to the look. So I've stamped the body and cut a little nook for the body off of the edge of that paper, and now I've added it with foam dots just to give it a little bit of dimension. Now I'm going to repeat this with all of the other stamp cards that I've done, and then in that stamp set is this tiny little hello image, which I just love. I'm going to stamp it on an angle on all of the cards. So you can see that my butterfly perfectly matches that pattern paper that we created. Now I'm not going to bore you with putting all these cards together because they all were done in the same way, but I did want to show you what I did with the leftover pieces of the background that I didn't use. So I went ahead and I adhered them all onto a white note card, and then I stamped a greeting with a new Hero Arts stamp set, either above or below the background pieces. I also inked some white cardstock so that it would perfectly match the stamping that we did, and I punched either some hearts or some stars, covered it with some Wink of Stella shimmer, just a glitter pen, and then some glossy accents for shine, kind of creating my own embellishments that perfectly match that background. Now I also wanted to show you that to give it a nice defined edge, I cut an ink strip of paper to put along that edge and add glossy accents to it too. It's a nice way to give it a finishing touch. This one I kept kind of simple so that I could use it for a masculine card if I wanted to. There are just so many things you can do with a good background stamp, and I hope this inspires you to try some double stamping. If you're interested in any of the products that I use, you can look at the YouTube description down below, or you can visit my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next video.